The rain had started just before the dinner rush, turning the streets of downtown Charleston into a mirror of neon reflections and hurried footsteps. Inside the Sterling Oak, the city's most exclusive restaurant, the atmosphere was entirely different. Warm, amber lighting, the soft clink of crystal glasses, and the low murmur of conversations worth more than most people's monthly salaries. Naomi Washington had been working there for exactly 3 weeks. She moved between tables with practiced invisibility, her black uniform blending into the shadows of the mahogany-paneled walls. At 42, she had learned long ago how to make herself small, how to read a room before entering it, how to anticipate needs before they were spoken. It was a survival skill she'd perfected through years of cleaning homes, hotels, and now this, a high-end restaurant where a single bottle of wine cost more than her weekly paycheck. The evening had been particularly busy. A tech convention had brought an unusual crowd to Charleston, filling the Sterling Oak with young millionaires, startup founders, and venture capitalists. They were different from the usual clientele, louder, more impatient, less interested in the restaurant's century-old traditions. Naomi wiped down table 7 for the 3rd time, making sure every water spot was gone. Her manager, Mr. Hensley, had made it clear during her interview that attention to detail was everything. "Our clients expect perfection," he'd said, his pale blue eyes scrutinizing her application. "They don't come here for food. They come here for an experience." She'd nodded, understanding what he really meant. "Don't embarrass us. Don't give them a reason to complain." The kitchen doors swung open, releasing a wave of heat and the sharp voice of Chef Laurent berating someone about a garnish. Naomi moved toward the storage closet to refill her cleaning supplies when she heard it. Snap, snap. The sound cut through the restaurant's refined atmosphere like a whip crack. She turned slowly, already knowing what she would find. Table 12, corner booth. The young man sitting there couldn't have been more than 30, dressed in a designer suit that probably cost more than her car. He had that particular look of wealth that went beyond money, the confidence of someone who'd never been told no, never waited in line, never questioned whether he belonged in a space. His fingers were still raised in the air, poised mid-snap, his face expressing not anger but something worse, complete indifference. To him, she wasn't even human enough to warrant eye contact. Snap, snap. Several nearby diners looked up. An elderly couple at table 9 exchanged glances. A woman in a red dress paused mid-sentence, her fork suspended halfway to her mouth. Naomi felt the familiar heat rising in her chest. Not quite anger, not quite shame, but that uncomfortable mixture of both that came from being reduced to a prop in someone else's world. She'd felt it countless times before, in the homes where she cleaned, where residents walked past her as if she were furniture, in stores where security guards followed her, in 1,000 tiny moments that accumulated like stones in her pockets. But she'd also learned to swallow it down, to transform it into something manageable. She approached the table, her eyes focused on the polished floor. "Yes, sir. How can I help you?" He didn't look up from his phone. "Water, no ice. And tell the kitchen my steak is taking too long." His voice was flat, bored. He could have been ordering a package delivery. "Of course, sir, I'll check with—" "Just do it." He waved his hand dismissively, already scrolling through his phone again. Naomi retreated, feeling the eyes of other diners on her back. The restaurant's usual quiet elegance had developed a crack, a moment of unveiled truth that everyone was trying to pretend they hadn't witnessed. Hey, before we continue with what happens next, if you're enjoying this story, would you consider subscribing to our channel? We're a small, growing community passionate about sharing powerful stories like Naomi's, and your subscription helps us create more content like this. Click that subscribe button, it means the world to us. Now let's get back to what Naomi discovered. In the kitchen, she delivered the message to Chef Laurent, who cursed in French and threw a towel on the counter. "These Silicon Valley babies," he muttered. "They want Michelin stars in 15 minutes. When she brought the water, carefully, no ice, exactly as requested, the young man didn't acknowledge her. He was on a phone call now, speaking loudly about market shares and acquisition targets, his voice carrying across the restaurant in a way that made Mr. Hensley's jaw tighten from across the room. Naomi set the glass down gently and stepped back. 20 minutes later, his steak arrived. He ate mechanically, still absorbed in his phone, barely tasting the food that Chef Laurent had spent years perfecting. The evening wore on. The rain intensified outside, drumming against the windows. Gradually, the restaurant began to empty. The elderly couple left, tipping generously. The woman in the red dress departed with her companion, laughing about something. But the young man remained, working on his laptop now, empty plates pushed aside carelessly. Finally, at 10:47 p.m., he closed his computer with a decisive snap. He stood, pulled out his wallet, and tossed several bills on the table along with the receipt. He didn't leave a tip. He didn't say thank you. He simply walked toward the exit, his expensive shoes clicking against the marble floor. Naomi waited until the front door closed behind him before approaching table 12. This was the part of the job she actually didn't mind. The quiet after a difficult customer, the restoration of order, the erasure of unpleasantness. She stacked the plates efficiently, wiped down the surface, and picked up the cash and receipt. She was about to place them in the payment tray when something made her pause. The receipt looked normal at first glance. Itemized charges, tax, total, but there was something else. A marking at the bottom, barely visible, not printed, handwritten. She held it closer to the light. The writing was rushed, almost illegible, squeezed into the narrow margin below the total. Her heart began to beat faster as she made out the words. Room 417, Riverside Hotel, midnight, come alone, you're in danger. Trust no one here. M. Naomi's hands started shaking. She read it again, certain she must have misunderstood, but the words remained the same. The receipt slipped slightly in her damp palms. She looked around the restaurant. Mr. Hensley was in his office, the remaining staff were busy closing duties. Chef Laurent's voice echoed from the kitchen. Who had written this? The arrogant young man? That made no sense. Why would someone who treated her like she was invisible suddenly? Unless the whole thing had been an act. Unless there was a reason he needed everyone to think he was just another entitled customer. Unless… Naomi! She jumped, nearly dropping the receipt. Mr. Hensley had emerged from his office, his expression urgent. The gentleman from table 12 just called. He's requesting to speak with you specifically. He says he left something important and needs you to bring it to him. The words seemed to echo in the sudden silence. Naomi looked down at the receipt in her hand, at the mysterious message that changed everything. You're in danger. Trust no one here. Her mouth went dry. Because if the message was real, if she was truly in danger, then Mr. Hensley standing in front of her right now insisting she go meet that man. Could she trust him? Could she trust anyone? Naomi's mind raced through possibilities in the 3 seconds it took Mr. Hensley to reach her side. His cologne, expensive, overpowering, arrived before he did. Did you hear me? His tone carried that edge of impatience he reserved for moments when staff didn't respond immediately. He's waiting. Said it's urgent. She folded the receipt carefully, slipping it into her apron pocket with movements she hoped looked casual. Yes, sir, I heard. What exactly did he say he left? Mr. Hensley's eyes narrowed slightly. In the 3 weeks she'd worked here, Naomi had never questioned him. She'd been the model employee, quiet, efficient, invisible. This deviation from pattern, clearly registered. He didn't specify, just said you'd know what it was. Mr. Hensley checked his watch, a Rolex that caught the light. He's at the Riverside Hotel, room 417. He wants you to deliver it personally within the hour. Room 417. The same room number from the message. Naomi's pulse hammered in her throat. Mr. Hensley, I don't think… It's not really proper for me to visit a guest's hotel room. Maybe tomorrow during business hours I could… Naomi. His voice dropped lower, taking on a quality she'd heard him use with difficult customers. Smooth, controlled, hiding something sharp underneath. This gentleman is a very important client. His company is considering hosting a series of corporate events here. We're talking about a contract worth 6 figures. If he wants you to deliver something he forgot, you deliver it. Understood? The way he said you deliver it made it sound less like a request and more like a threat. She nodded slowly, her hand instinctively moving to her pocket where the receipt waited with its cryptic warning. Trust no one here. Good. Mr. Hensley's expression softened into something resembling a smile. Take the company car, keys are in my office. And Naomi? He paused, his hand resting briefly on her shoulder, in a gesture that might have looked paternal to an observer, but felt like a weight. Remember, we're all counting on you to represent the Sterling Oak well. As he walked away, Naomi noticed something she'd missed before. Chef Laurent had emerged from the kitchen and was watching the exchange, his usually animated face carefully blank. When their eyes met, he looked away quickly, retreating back through the swinging doors. The restaurant felt different now. The warm lighting seemed harsh, the elegant decor like a stage set hiding something rotten underneath. How many times had she cleaned these tables, polished these surfaces, without really seeing what was happening around her? Sarah, one of the other servers, approached with a tray of glassware. She was 23, working her way through college, usually chatty and friendly. But tonight she moved past Naomi without a word, her eyes fixed straight ahead. "Sarah?" Naomi called softly. The young woman paused, still not looking at her. "You should go," she whispered. "Don't keep them waiting." "Them?" But Sarah was already moving away, disappearing into the back storage area. Naomi stood in the center of the dining room, surrounded by empty tables that suddenly felt like witnesses to something she couldn't quite name. The rain continued its assault on the windows, each drop like a warning she couldn't decode. She pulled out the receipt again, studying the handwriting under the nearest lamp. The message was definitely rushed, written by someone who didn't have much time, but there was something else. A small symbol sketched in the corner, barely visible. It looked like a badge, or maybe a seal of some kind. Her phone buzzed in her pocket. Unknown number. With trembling fingers she answered. "Hello?" Silence. Then breathing. Then a voice. Male. Distorted. Like it was being filtered through something. "You read it." Not a question. A statement. "Who is this?" Naomi whispered, turning away from the windows where her reflection stared back at her. "There's no time to explain everything, but you need to understand. That man who snapped his fingers at you, he wasn't being cruel. He was trying to get your attention without alerting the others. He's FBI, and he's been watching you because someone in that restaurant has been using your employment file to set you up for something bad. Something very bad." Naomi's legs felt weak. "Set me up for what?" "Money laundering. The Sterling Oak is a front, has been for 2 years. They hire people like you, people with clean records, people who need work and won't ask questions, people who are invisible." The word landed like a slap. "They use your identity to process transactions, sign documents in your name. By tomorrow morning, federal agents will raid the restaurant, and unless you cooperate with us, you'll be arrested along with everyone else." "But I haven't done anything." Her voice rose, and she immediately glanced around, making sure no one had heard. "You don't have to do anything, that's the point. They do it all electronically. Your signature was scanned during your hiring, your bank account information from your direct deposit setup, your social security number. They've been creating a paper trail that leads directly to you." Naomi sank into the nearest chair, her mind reeling. "Why me?" "Because you're perfect. No criminal record. No family to ask questions. You work night shifts, keep to yourself, follow orders. And you're black. They figured if it came down to it, who would a jury believe? The respectable white restaurant owner or the black maid with access to everything?" The truth of it hit like a physical blow. She'd spent so much of her life trying to be invisible, to not make waves, to keep her head down and survive. And someone had weaponized that against her. "The agent at the riverside," the distorted voice continued. "His name is Marcus Webb. He's been undercover for 6 months. Tonight was his only chance to warn you without compromising the investigation. He had to make it look like he was just another entitled customer. The scene he caused, the way he treated you, it was all theater to establish a reason for a private meeting that wouldn't raise suspicion." "Then why the note? Why not just tell me?" "Because we don't know how deep this goes. Your phone might be monitored. The restaurant certainly is. There are cameras, listening devices. The only safe place was a handwritten note on a receipt that would look like nothing to anyone else." Naomi's mind flashed to the security cameras mounted in the corners of the dining room. How many times had she noticed them without really thinking about what they meant? "What do you want me to do?" "Go to room 417. Agent Webb will explain everything and offer you immunity in exchange for your cooperation." "But Naomi," the voice took on a new urgency, "you need to leave now, and you need to act normal. If they suspect you know something, if they think you're going to talk, we can't guarantee your safety." The line went dead. Naomi sat frozen, the phone still pressed against her ear. Through the kitchen doors she could hear the sound of pots being washed, the normal end-of-night cleanup. In Mr. Hensley's office, she could see a silhouette moving back and forth, talking on his own phone. Everything looked exactly as it always had, except now she knew it was all a lie. She stood slowly, legs unsteady, and made her way to Mr. Hensley's office. He looked up when she knocked, his expression shifting to pleasant concern. "All set?" "Yes, sir. I'll head over to the hotel now." "Excellent." He handed her the car keys but held on to them a moment longer when she reached for them, forcing her to meet his eyes. "You know, Naomi, you've been such a valuable addition to our team. I'd hate to lose you over some misunderstanding." The word hung in the air between them, loaded with meaning. "I'm just delivering something a customer forgot," she said quietly. "Of course." He released the keys. "That's all. Nothing more." She walked toward the exit on legs that felt like they belonged to someone else. Behind the bar, she noticed Carlos, the night bartender, watching her with an expression she couldn't read. He'd always been kind to her, teaching her the names of wines, covering for her when she made small mistakes. Was he part of it too? The parking lot was dark, the rain falling harder now. The company car, a black sedan, sat in its designated spot near the back entrance. As Naomi approached it, she noticed something that made her blood run cold. Another car, a gray SUV with tinted windows, sat 3 spaces away. Its engine was running. Someone was inside, but she couldn't make out features through the rain-streaked windows. She got into the sedan quickly, locking the doors. Her hands shook so badly it took 3 tries to get the key in the ignition. As she pulled out of the parking lot, the gray SUV's headlights came on, and it began to follow her. Naomi's breath came in short gasps as she navigated the rain-slicked streets of downtown Charleston. The SUV maintained a steady distance, not close enough to be obvious, but not far enough to be coincidence. The Riverside Hotel was only 7 blocks away, 7 blocks that suddenly felt like 7 miles. At the first red light, she glanced in the rearview mirror. The SUV had pulled up directly behind her. Through the rain, she could see 2 figures in the front seat. The passenger appeared to be on a phone. The light changed. Naomi accelerated, her mind racing through options. Should she drive past the hotel? Try to lose them? Call the police? But what would she tell the police? That she suspected her employers of money laundering based on an anonymous phone call? That she was being followed, maybe? She made a sudden decision, pulling into the right lane and taking an abrupt turn onto Meeting Street. The SUV had to wait for oncoming traffic, giving her a 30-second lead. She used it. Pushing the sedan faster than she should have on wet roads, Naomi took 2 more quick turns, cutting through a narrow alley between buildings that she'd only noticed because she used to walk this route when she couldn't afford to drive. The sedan barely fit, her side mirrors nearly scraping brick walls. When she emerged on the other side, the SUV was gone. The Riverside Hotel appeared ahead, its Art Deco facade lit up against the storm. Naomi pulled into the underground parking garage, her heart hammering so hard she thought she might pass out. She sat in the parked car for a full minute, watching the entrance in her mirrors. No gray SUV appeared. Finally, she gathered her courage and stepped out into the concrete stillness of the garage. The elevator ride to the 4th floor felt eternal, each floor ding making her jump. Room 417 was at the end of a long, carpeted hallway. She approached it slowly, aware of every sound. The ice machine humming, a TV playing in a nearby room, her own breathing. She knocked. 3 soft raps. The door opened immediately as if someone had been standing right behind it. The young man from the restaurant stood there, but he looked different now. The arrogance was gone, replaced by intensity and focus. His expensive suit jacket was off, and she could see what she'd missed before. A shoulder holster with a gun. "Naomi Washington?" His voice was nothing like it had been at the restaurant. No boredom, no dismissiveness. This was a voice used to being obeyed. She nodded, unable to speak. He stepped back, gesturing her inside. "I'm Special Agent Marcus Webb, FBI, and we don't have much time." The hotel room was not what she expected. Instead of a bed and typical hotel furniture, it had been transformed into a command center. Laptops covered the desk, surveillance photos plastered one wall, and a large monitor showed multiple camera feeds, including several views of the Sterling Oak. A woman stood by the window, also wearing a badge on her belt. She was older, maybe 50, with short silver hair and sharp eyes that assessed Naomi in one sweeping glance. "This is Special Agent Patricia Reeves," Webb said, closing and bolting the door behind Naomi. "She's been running this operation. Ms. Washington." Reeves's voice was firm but not unkind. "I know this must be overwhelming, but I need you to focus. Lives depend on what happens in the next few hours." Naomi found her voice. "The phone call. Someone told me you'd explain everything." Webb and Reeves exchanged a look. "What phone call?" Webb asked slowly. "Just before I left, someone called me, told me about the money laundering, about you being undercover, about—" She stopped, seeing their expressions. "Ms. Washington," Reeves said carefully, "we didn't call you. We couldn't risk compromised communications." The room seemed to tilt. "Then who?" Naomi's voice trailed off as understanding dawned with horrible clarity. Webb moved to the window, peering through the blinds. Someone knows she's here. Someone wanted to make sure she came. But why? Naomi asked. If I'm being set up, why would they want me to meet with you? Reeves pulled up a photo on one of the laptops and turned it toward Naomi. Do you recognize this woman? The image showed a black woman, early 40s, professional clothes. She looked vaguely familiar, but Naomi couldn't place her. Look closer, Reeves urged. And then Naomi saw it. The woman in the photo had a small birthmark on her left cheek, just below her eye. The same birthmark Naomi saw in the mirror every morning. The same height, the same hair, the same build. Oh God, Naomi whispered. She looks exactly like me. Not looks, Webb said grimly. Looked. Past tense. Her body was found 3 days ago in a dumpster behind a warehouse on the east side. She'd been dead about a week. Naomi's legs gave out. She sank into the nearest chair, her vision swimming. Her name was Nicole Watson, Reeves continued. She worked at the Sterling Oak before you. Same position, same shifts. She was about to testify against them when she disappeared. And they hired me to. Naomi couldn't finish the sentence. To replace her, Webb finished. Not just her job, her identity, her role in their operation. And when the time came, he didn't need to complete the thought. They were going to kill me, Naomi said flatly. Make it look like I ran, like I was the one who stole the money. Yes, Reeves confirmed. And now, by coming here, you've just accelerated their timeline. A sound came from the hallway. Footsteps. Multiple people, moving fast. Webb's hand went to his gun. Get down, he said quietly. But before Naomi could move, the hotel room's phone rang. They all stared at it. It rang again, insistent, demanding. Reeves picked it up, putting it on speaker. Yes? A voice came through, smooth, educated, familiar. Mr. Hensley. Agent Reeves, I think we need to talk about our mutual friend, the one you have with you right now, because she's not quite who you think she is. Webb and Reeves's faces went pale. What are you talking about? Reeves demanded. Mr. Hensley's laugh was soft, almost sad. You've been so focused on protecting Naomi Washington that you never stopped to ask the right question. It's not whether we're using her identity. He paused, and Naomi could hear the smile in his voice. It's whether she's really Naomi Washington at all. The silence that followed Mr. Hensley's words was absolute. Even the rain seemed to pause, as if the storm itself was waiting for an explanation. Naomi felt her reality fracturing. What is he talking about? I'm Naomi Washington. I've always been. Have you? Mr. Hensley's voice through the speaker was gentle, almost pitying. Tell me, Naomi, or whoever you are, what do you remember about your life before 6 months ago? Really remember? With clarity and detail? Naomi opened her mouth to answer, then stopped. Her mind reached back, grasping for memories that should have been solid but felt strangely distant. Her apartment, her previous jobs, her childhood. They were there, weren't they? I remember everything, she said, but her voice sounded uncertain even to herself. Do you? Mr. Hensley pressed. Agent Reeves, I'm going to send you something. Check your secure email. Received it yet? Reeves moved to her laptop, her expression guarded. Webb kept his gun trained on the door, but his eyes flicked toward Naomi with new suspicion. It's coming through, Reeves said, her fingers flying across the keyboard. Then she stopped, her face draining of color. This can't be right. What? Naomi stood, moving toward the laptop. What can't be right? Reeves turned the screen toward her. It showed a medical record. Brain scans, doctor's notes, dates from 7 months ago. The patient's name at the top, Nicole Watson. But the photo attached to the file was Naomi's face. I don't understand, Naomi whispered, her hands gripping the edge of the desk to keep from falling. Nicole Watson was in a car accident 7 months ago. Mr. Hensley's voice continued from the phone. Severe head trauma. She was in a coma for 3 weeks. When she woke up, she had retrograde amnesia. Couldn't remember anything from before the accident. The hospital where she recovered, it was funded by a shell corporation. The doctor who treated her, he was on our payroll. You're lying, Naomi said, but the conviction was draining from her voice, because somewhere deep in her mind, fragments were beginning to surface. A white room, beeping machines, a doctor with kind eyes telling her everything would be all right, that memory loss was normal, that her name was Naomi Washington, and she just needed time to heal. We gave you a new identity, Mr. Hensley continued. A clean slate, employment history, references, even an apartment with belongings that would feel familiar. You weren't stealing from us, Nicole. You were never meant to testify against us. You were meant to forget us entirely, to live out the rest of your life as someone else, someone without dangerous knowledge. Webb looked at Reeves. Is this possible? Could they have done this? Theoretically, Reeves said slowly, her mind clearly racing through implications. There have been cases of induced amnesia, identity replacement and witness protection, but this would be incredibly sophisticated. They'd need medical expertise, psychological manipulation, document forgery at the highest level. Naomi's head was spinning. She reached into her pocket, pulling out her wallet. Driver's license, Naomi Washington. Credit card, Naomi Washington. A photo of her standing in front of an apartment building she supposedly lived in. But when she looked at that photo now, really looked at it, she couldn't remember when it was taken. Couldn't remember the moment. It existed as a fact without feeling, like reading about someone else's life. The body you found in the dumpster, Naomi said slowly, her voice hollow. If I'm Nicole Watson, then who was that? An unfortunate woman named Janice Williams, Mr. Hensley replied. She bore a passing resemblance to you, enough to serve as a stand-in. We needed the FBI to think Nicole Watson was dead. We needed you to think you were someone else entirely. 2 birds, 1 stone. You murdered her, Webb snarled at the phone. Killed an innocent woman just to cover your tracks. I'm a businessman, Agent Webb. I make difficult decisions. But here's what you need to understand. I didn't want any of this. Nicole Watson was a good employee. When she accidentally saw things she shouldn't have, when she started asking questions, we had a choice. We could eliminate her permanently, or we could give her a chance at a new life. We chose mercy. Mercy? Naomi's voice cracked. You stole my identity, my memories, my entire life. We gave you a life, Mr. Hensley corrected. Nicole Watson was drowning in debt, working 3 jobs. No family, no prospects. Naomi Washington has a clean record, a fresh start. We even made sure your apartment was nicer than anywhere Nicole ever lived. We were trying to help you, by turning me into someone I'm not, by letting you forget the things that would have gotten you killed. Because make no mistake, Nicole, once you saw those documents, once you understood what the Sterling Oak really was, you became a liability. This way, everyone wins. You live, we continue our operations. The FBI wastes resources protecting someone who doesn't exist anymore. Reeves leaned toward the phone, her voice cold. If you're so benevolent, why are armed men following her? Why the threats? Because she started remembering, Mr. Hensley said simply. Little things at first, déjà vu, fragments. We've been monitoring her cognitive responses. Yes, there are sensors in your apartment, Naomi, sorry. And 3 days ago, we detected unusual brain activity patterns. The amnesia was breaking down. Tonight, when Agent Webb left that note, when you actually read it and understood its significance, that confirmed our fears. You're starting to remember who you really are, and that means you're becoming dangerous again. Naomi's mind was reeling, but something in his explanation didn't fit. If you wanted to help me, why hire me at the restaurant? Why bring me back to the same place where Nicole discovered your operation? Silence on the other end. Then a different voice spoke. Female, sharp, with an accent Naomi couldn't quite place. Because we needed to know if the memory erasure was permanent. You were a test case. If you could work there for months without recognizing anything, without triggering any memories, then we'd know the procedure worked. We could use it on others. Eliminate witnesses without actually eliminating them. Who are you? Webb demanded. Dr. Miranda Chen. I'm the neurologist who treated Nicole, who treated Naomi, after the accident. And before you ask, yes, the accident was staged. We couldn't risk actual brain damage being inconsistent with our needs. A controlled scenario with calculated trauma. That's the only way to ensure specific memory loss. Naomi felt bile rising in her throat. They deliberately hurt her, crashed a car with her inside, all to erase her mind. You're monsters, she whispered. We're pioneers, Dr. Chen corrected. Do you know how many people would pay for a complete fresh start? How many witnesses could be protected if we could simply erase their memories of crimes they witnessed? How many trauma victims could be freed from their pasts? What we did to you isn't cruelty. It's the future of medicine. Webb looked at Naomi, his expression conflicted. Do you remember anything? Anything at all from before? Naomi closed her eyes, reaching deep into the fog of her mind. And there, like searching for something in murky water, she felt it. A memory, sharp and clear and undeniable. Documents, she said slowly. Ledgers. I was cleaning Mr. Hensley's office after hours. I found a folder that had been left out. Pages and pages of transactions. Names I recognized. Politicians, judges, business leaders. All of them tied to the Sterling Oak. Not as customers, as partners. Money being cleaned through fake reservations, phantom catering events, inflated supply costs. The memory was flooding back now, each detail clicking into place. I took photos with my phone, she continued. I was going to take them to the police. But that night when I left the restaurant, she paused, her breath catching. There was a car waiting. Someone grabbed me, a cloth over my face, chemicals, and then nothing. Until I woke up in the hospital and they told me I was Naomi Washington. Reeves was typing furiously. The photos. What happened to your phone? I don't know. When I woke up as Naomi, I had a different phone. Everything was new. The original phone was destroyed, Mr. Hensley said from the speaker. The photos with it, along with any evidence Nicole Watson ever existed. We were very thorough. Except you weren't, Webb said, a note of triumph entering his voice. Because we've been building our own case. 6 months of surveillance, financial records, testimony from others. We don't need Nicole Watson's photos. Oh, Agent Webb. Mr. Hensley's voice carried a smile. You're not thinking clearly. Yes, you have evidence against the Sterling Oak. Against me personally, perhaps. But consider what happens when this goes to trial. The defense will call Dr. Chen as an expert witness. She'll testify about Nicole Watson's condition, about the experimental treatment, about how traumatic brain injury and induced amnesia can create false memories. Every piece of testimony from Naomi, or Nicole, or whoever she thinks she is today, will be torn apart. Was it real? Was it implanted? Did it happen before the accident or after? Is she even mentally competent to testify? Naomi felt the trap closing around her. They'd turned her own mind into a weapon against herself. Juries love a sympathetic victim, Mr. Hensley continued. A black woman, brain-damaged and confused, manipulated by federal agents into believing false memories to serve their investigation. The media will have a field day. By the time we're done, the FBI will be the ones on trial, not us. Reeves's jaw clenched. You're betting everything on her being an unreliable witness. I'm betting on reality. She is unreliable. We made sure of it. Naomi looked at her hands. These hands that had cleaned tables, that had read that receipt, that had driven here tonight. Were they Nicole Watson's hands? Naomi Washington's? Did it even matter anymore? There's one thing you didn't count on, she said quietly. What's that? I might not remember everything, but I remember enough. I remember seeing those documents. I remember your handwriting on the ledgers. You signed them personally, dated them, added notes in the margins. I remember specific transactions, dates, amounts, names. Her voice grew stronger. You can make a jury doubt my sanity, but you can't make them ignore forensic evidence that matches what only someone who actually saw those documents would know. The silence from the phone was different now, uncertain. She's right, Reeves said, understanding dawning. Even if a jury thinks she's confused, if she can provide details that match evidence we've independently verified, details she couldn't possibly know unless she actually witnessed them, it establishes that whatever happened to her memory, the core truth remains. Webb finished. She saw something real. Test me, Naomi challenged. Right now. Show me your evidence. Ask me about specific transactions. If I'm just making false memories, I'll be wrong. But if I'm right. Reeves pulled up a file on her laptop. March 15th, 2 years ago. Do you remember anything from that date? Naomi closed her eyes, diving back into the returning fragments. A reservation party of 12. Supposedly a birthday dinner for a city councilman. But the credit card used was from a construction company that didn't exist 6 months later. The amount was $47,000 for a single meal. The tip alone was $25,000. Reeves's eyes widened. That's exact, down to the dollar amount. How about October 3rd? Webb asked. Catering event. State Courthouse Renovation Committee. Invoice was for $200,000. But there was no event. I checked the courthouse schedule out of curiosity. Nothing was booked that day. The money just disappeared into the Sterling Oaks accounts, then dispersed to dozens of smaller accounts. I remember because the invoice number was 100377, and I thought it was weird they used the date in the number. Webb looked at Reeves. She's giving us information we've spent months compiling, details we haven't released publicly. Then she really did see it, Reeves said. Before the accident, before the memory alteration. She's not making this up. From the phone, Mr. Hensley's voice had lost its confidence. Dr. Chen, this shouldn't be possible. You said the memories would be permanently blocked. They should be. Dr. Chen sounded frustrated. The trauma was extensive enough. The neural pathways should have been disrupted beyond recovery. Unless what? Mr. Hensley demanded. Unless the emotional weight of the memories was stronger than we calculated. Traumatic memories, especially those tied to moral outrage or fear, embed differently in the brain. They're more resilient, more likely to resurface when triggered by similar emotional states. So bringing her back to the restaurant, Webb said slowly, was the worst thing they could have done. Reeves finished. Every shift she worked there, every time she cleaned a table or heard Mr. Hensley's voice, it was chipping away at the barriers they'd built. They didn't test her resistance, they guaranteed her recovery. Naomi felt something like triumph mixing with her terror. They'd tried to erase her, but instead they'd just buried her. And now she was clawing her way back to the surface. A sound from the hallway made them all freeze. Not footsteps this time. Something heavier, mechanical. Mr. Hensley, Reeves said into the phone. What are those men outside doing? Being pragmatic. His voice had gone cold again. The smooth businessman replaced by something harder. You were right about one thing. We can't afford for Nicole Watson or Naomi Washington or whoever she is to testify. Dr. Chen's experimental treatment clearly failed. So we're reverting to our original solution, which is permanent memory erasure, the old-fashioned kind. The hotel room door exploded inward. Men in tactical gear poured through. Not police, not FBI, but private contractors with weapons and body armor that suggested military training. Webb managed to fire twice before a stun grenade turned the world into white noise and ringing ears. Naomi felt hands grabbing her, lifting her. She tried to fight, but her limbs wouldn't respond correctly. Someone was dragging her toward the door. Through the chaos, she heard Reeves shouting something about backup, about federal jurisdiction. But the tactical team moved with brutal efficiency, clearly prepared for this scenario. They were in the hallway now. Naomi's vision cleared enough to see Webb on the floor, blood spreading from his shoulder. Reeves was pinned against the wall by two men. The elevator doors stood open, waiting, and that's when Naomi saw her. A woman standing in the elevator, watching the scene with professional detachment. Dr. Miranda Chen, she realized. The neurologist who had stolen her mind once before, come to finish the job. Wait! Naomi tried to scream, but it came out as a whisper. Wait, I can prove. One of the tactical team members pulled out a syringe. Dr. Chen stepped forward, her expression almost sad. I'm sorry, she said. You were supposed to live a happy, quiet life, but you couldn't leave well enough alone. The needle descended toward Naomi's neck, and in that moment, as the chemical oblivion approached for the second time, Naomi's fractured memories coalesced into one crystal-clear realization. She knew something she'd seen in those documents, something so important that they couldn't risk her remembering it, even after everything they'd done to erase her mind. Something about a name, a very specific name, a name that would make sense of everything, why the sterling oak was so valuable to them, why they'd gone to such lengths to protect it, why killing her had never been their first choice. The needle touched her skin. Senator Bradley, she gasped out. He's not a customer. The drug hit her system like a freight train, and the world went black. But not before she saw Dr. Chen's face go pale. Not before she saw the tactical team leader pull out his radio and say 3 words that would change everything. We have a problem. Consciousness returned in fragments. The taste of copper in her mouth, fluorescent lights burning through her eyelids, the steady beep of a heart monitor somewhere close. Naomi tried to open her eyes, but her lids felt weighted, her entire body wrapped in cotton. Neural activity is increasing. A voice. Female. Clinical. She's waking up faster than expected. How long was she under? Another voice, male, tense. 47 minutes. The dosage should have kept her sedated for at least 6 hours. Her system is metabolizing it at an accelerated rate. Naomi forced her eyes open. The room swam into focus. Not a hospital, but something that resembled a medical facility. White walls, stainless steel equipment, but no windows. Underground, she realized. They'd taken her somewhere underground. Dr. Chen stood over her, studying a tablet with a frown. Behind her, 2 of the tactical team members remained, weapons holstered but visible. And in the corner, sitting in a leather chair like he owned the space, was Mr. Hensley. "Welcome back, Nicole," he said. "Or should I still call you Naomi? I'm honestly not sure which name you prefer at this point." Naomi tried to sit up and discovered she was restrained. Leather straps across her chest, wrists, and ankles. Medical restraints, the kind designed to immobilize without causing injury. "What did you do to the FBI agents?" Her voice was hoarse, raw. "They're alive, if that's what you're asking. Wounded, subdued, and currently being held at a separate location. We're not murderers, Nicole. Despite what you might think. You killed Janice Williams. That was regrettable, but necessary." Mr. Hensley stood, approaching the bed where Naomi was strapped. "Let me be honest with you, since we're past the point of pretenses. The Sterling Oak isn't just a money laundering operation. It's a nexus, a place where powerful people can meet, conduct business, exchange information without electronic trails, cash transactions, coded conversations over meals, documents handed off in wine cellars. For 2 decades, it served as neutral ground for people who can't be seen meeting in official capacities." "Senator Bradley," Naomi said. Mr. Hensley's expression didn't change, but something flickered in his eyes. "You said his name before you went under. What exactly do you remember about the senator?" Naomi's mind was still foggy, but fragments were sharpening. The documents, there was a ledger page with his name at the top, but it wasn't a payment record. It was something else. Transaction codes, dates that matched. She paused, the memory solidifying. Dates that matched classified votes, defense contracts, foreign policy decisions. "She remembers more than we thought," Dr. Chen said quietly to Mr. Hensley. The emotional charge of the discovery created a deeper encoding. Even the induced amnesia couldn't fully suppress it. Mr. Hensley pulled up a chair, sitting so he was at eye level with Naomi. "Senator James Bradley is the chair of the Armed Services Committee. He's also been selling classified information to foreign entities for 6 years. The Sterling Oak is where he conducts his trades, hidden in plain sight, disguised as business dinners and fundraising events. We facilitate these meetings, and in exchange, we receive protection." "Protection from what?" "Oh, from investigations like the FBI's current operation. Senator Bradley has connections in every agency. He's been feeding them false leads, misdirecting resources, ensuring that any investigation into the Sterling Oak stays shallow. He's the reason we've operated so long without real scrutiny." Naomi felt sick. "So you're not just laundering money, you're enabling espionage." "We're providing a service," Mr. Hensley corrected, "and we're very well compensated for it. But here's the problem. You're not supposed to know any of this. The moment you saw those documents, you became a national security risk. Not just to us, but to Senator Bradley. And he doesn't respond well to threats. Is that why you didn't kill me? Because the senator wanted it done a specific way? The senator wanted you dead immediately. I convinced him we could do better, that we could erase your memories and eliminate you as a witness without the complications of a murder investigation. I thought I was being clever, merciful even." Mr. Hensley's jaw tightened, "But you kept remembering. And tonight, when you said his name in front of FBI agents, even for a moment before we sedated you, you crossed a line we can't uncross." Dr. Chen approached with another syringe. "Mr. Hensley, I need to explain something about the procedure. What we did before, the induced amnesia, was reversible because we were blocking access to memories, not destroying them. But if you want me to ensure she never remembers anything, the process is different, more invasive, permanent." "Permanent how?" Naomi asked, though she wasn't sure she wanted the answer. "Targeted neurological damage, Doctor," Chen said matter-of-factly. "I'll chemically destroy the specific neural pathways that contain these memories. You'll survive, but those memories, everything about the Sterling Oak, Senator Bradley, the documents you saw, will be gone forever, along with potentially other memories from that time period. It's not precise." "You're talking about brain damage," Naomi said flatly. "I'm talking about survival. This or death. Those are your options." Naomi looked between them, her mind racing despite the lingering drug fog. "The FBI knows I'm missing. You assaulted federal agents in a hotel. There's no way you walk away from this clean." "The senator will handle it," Mr. Hensley said. "He's already making calls. By morning, this will be classified as a national security matter. The FBI agents will be debriefed and reassigned. Their investigation will be shut down under the guise of protecting sensitive operations, and you," he paused, "you'll wake up in a hospital with no memory of any of this. Again. And if I refuse, then we proceed to the alternative, which neither of us wants." Naomi tested the restraints. Solid, professionally installed. She wasn't getting out of this through force. Her only weapon was information and time. "Before you erase my mind," she said slowly, "I need to know something. The documents I saw, the ones with Senator Bradley's name, where are they now?" Mr. Hensley smiled slightly. "Destroyed, along with every piece of physical evidence you might have seen. Why? Because I'm wondering why you need me at all. If the evidence is gone, if the FBI's investigation is being shut down, why go through this elaborate charade? Why not just let me go and discredit anything I say as the ravings of a brain-damaged woman?" The smile faded. "Because Senator Bradley doesn't leave loose ends. Or," Naomi said, her voice gaining strength, "because the evidence isn't really destroyed. Because somewhere, somehow, there's still proof. And you're terrified I might remember where it is." The silence that followed told her she'd hit the mark. Dr. Chen looked at Mr. Hensley. "She's more coherent than she should be. The drug should still be suppressing cognitive function." "I took photos," Naomi continued, the memory suddenly sharp and clear, "with my phone, before you grabbed me. But I didn't just take photos. I uploaded them to a cloud account. An account you don't know about because I set it up specifically for this purpose, using a fake name and anonymous email. It was a bluff. At least she thought it was." But even as she said the words, a faint memory stirred. Sitting in her car outside the Sterling Oak, hands shaking as she uploaded files, creating a backup in case something happened to her. Had Nicole Watson done that? Or was this a false memory? A desperate hope her brain was inventing? Mr. Hensley's face had gone pale. "You're lying." "Am I? Then erase my memories and find out. But if I'm telling the truth and those files are still out there and you destroy the only person who knows how to access them," she let the implication hang. "The account would have login credentials," Dr. Chen said. "Passwords, security questions. If we erase her memories, we lose access to that information, assuming such an account actually exists." But Mr. Hensley didn't sound convinced of his own words. "There's one way to find out," Naomi said. "Let me access a computer, give me 10 minutes. If there's no account, you'll know I was lying. But if there is," she met his eyes, "then we negotiate." "Negotiate what?" "Your life, my cooperation. I tell you how to access the files. You delete them, and then you let me go with my memories intact. I disappear, not through brain damage but voluntarily. New city, new identity of my own choosing, and enough money to make sure I never have a reason to resurface." Mr. Hensley studied her for a long moment. "And we're supposed to trust that you won't immediately go to the authorities? You're supposed to understand that I want to live. You've already demonstrated what happens to people who threaten you. I'm not brave, Mr. Hensley. I'm not a hero. I'm a woman who cleaned tables and accidentally saw something I shouldn't have. All I want is to survive this." It was partially true, but as Naomi spoke, she felt something else crystallizing in her mind. A plan, risky and desperate, but possibly the only chance she had. Dr. Chen pulled Mr. Hensley aside, speaking in low tones. Naomi strained to hear. "Could be bluffing, but if the files exist, Bradley will want confirmation before we proceed. Can't risk." Mr. Hensley returned, his expression unreadable. 10 minutes. Supervised. One of my men will watch everything you type. Any attempt to send a message, access anything other than this alleged cloud account, and Dr. Chen proceeds immediately with the permanent option. Clear? Clear. They wheeled in a laptop on a medical cart, positioning it so Naomi could reach the keyboard despite her restraints. One of the tactical team members stood directly behind her, close enough that she could feel his breath on her neck. Her fingers trembled as they hovered over the keys. This was it. The moment where she'd discover if her fragmentary memory was real or just desperate imagination. She typed a URL from memory, a generic cloud storage service. Nothing distinctive, then a username that felt right even though she couldn't have said why. N. Watson. Personal. The password was harder. Her mind grasped for it, finding only fragments. Something about a date? No. A combination. Letters and numbers. She tried 3 combinations. All failed. "Time's running out," Mr. Hensley said. Naomi closed her eyes, diving deeper into the recovered memories. She'd created this account in her car, frightened, hands shaking. She'd needed something she could remember even under stress, something meaningful. And then it came to her, not from before the accident, but from after. The apartment they'd given her as Naomi Washington had an address, 2847 Riverside Drive. She'd lived at that address as Nicole Watson too. They'd put her back in her own apartment, furnished it differently, changed the unit number in her memory, but the building was the same, because they wanted her close, monitored, controlled. She typed, 2847 Riverside Doctor. The account opened. Inside were 17 files, photos of ledgers, transaction records, meeting schedules, and one video file timestamped from 7 months ago, the night before her accident. Mr. Hensley leaned in close, his face illuminated by the screen. Delete them. Now. Not yet, Naomi said, her cursor hovering over the video file. First, you need to see what you're deleting, because I have a feeling Senator Bradley didn't tell you everything about what I witnessed that night. She clicked play. The video showed the interior of the Sterling Oaks wine cellar, dark, intimate, lined with bottles worth thousands of dollars each. Two figures stood near the back, illuminated by a single overhead light. One was Senator Bradley, unmistakable even in shadow. The other was Mr. Hensley himself, and they were discussing something that made Mr. Hensley's current face go from pale to ashen. That's impossible, he whispered. How did you? I didn't just take photos, Naomi said quietly. I stayed. I hid. And I recorded a conversation that proves you weren't just facilitating the senator's espionage. You were his partner, an active participant. On the screen, Senator Bradley's voice was clear. The Chinese are offering double if we can deliver the satellite defense protocols. Can you access them through your Pentagon contacts? And Mr. Hensley's response, by the end of the month. But my price is going up. This level of information, I want 20% of the total take. The video continued for 3 more minutes, documenting a conspiracy that went far beyond money laundering. When it ended, the room was silent except for the steady beep of the heart monitor. So here's the real negotiation, Naomi said, her voice steady despite her racing heart. Those files are set to automatically release to multiple news outlets and federal agencies if I don't log in and reset the timer every 72 hours, which means you need me alive and functional. Not brain damaged, not dead, but capable of maintaining that account. You're bluffing, Mr. Hensley said, but there was no conviction in his voice. Try me. Dr. Chen checked her tablet. Her heart rate is elevated but steady. Pupils normal. She's not showing signs of deception stress. Because I'm not lying. Mr. Hensley's hand moved toward the laptop as if to take control of it, then stopped. His mind was clearly racing through scenarios, calculating odds. If those files release, he said slowly, Senator Bradley goes down. But so do you. You're admitting to trespassing, to recording private conversations, to witnessing espionage and attempted murder, Naomi interrupted. I'll take my chances with a jury, especially when they see what you did to me. The medical records from my accident, Dr. Chen's experimental procedures, the FBI agents you assaulted tonight. I might not walk away clean, but neither will you. Nobody will. Mutually assured destruction, Mr. Hensley said. Mutually assured survival, Naomi corrected. We all want to live, Mr. Hensley. Even Senator Bradley, despite his position, doesn't want this to go public. So let's figure out how we all walk away from this. A phone rang, Mr. Hensley's personal cell. He answered it, listened for 30 seconds, his face going through several expressions before settling on resignation. That was the senator, he said after ending the call. He's been watching through the security cameras. He wants to meet with you in person, right now. Naomi's brief moment of control evaporated. Here? He's upstairs, has been for the last hour, waiting to see how this played out. Mr. Hensley gestured to the tactical team. Release her restraints, but stay close. As the leather straps came off, Naomi rubbed her wrists, her mind racing. Senator Bradley wanted to meet face to face. That could mean negotiation, or it could mean he'd decided that some loose ends were worth any consequences. They led her to an elevator, the industrial kind, all metal and function. It rose for what felt like forever before the doors opened onto an elegant study that seemed impossible given where they'd just been. Senator James Bradley stood by the window, looking out at the Charleston skyline. He was older than his publicity photos suggested, maybe 65, with silver hair and a face that projected both authority and exhaustion. Ms. Watson, he said without turning. Or is it Ms. Washington now? I confess I'm uncertain what to call you. Call me the woman who's about to destroy your career, Naomi said, surprised by her own boldness. Bradley turned and she saw something unexpected in his eyes. Not anger, not fear, but something else entirely. Actually, he said, I was hoping you might call me your new partner. Partner? Naomi repeated, the word tasting wrong in her mouth. You want to partner with the woman whose memories you tried to erase? Twice? Senator Bradley moved to a bar cart in the corner, pouring himself 2 fingers of scotch. He didn't offer her one. I understand your skepticism, but consider your current situation objectively. You have leverage. Those files, the automatic release mechanism. Very clever, by the way. But leverage isn't the same as safety. The moment you walk out of here, you're a target. Not just from us, but from everyone whose name appears in those documents. I'll take my chances with the FBI. The FBI. Bradley laughed, but there was no humor in it. Ms. Watson, I've been manipulating federal investigations for 6 years. Do you really think 2 injured agents and a compromised operation will protect you? By tomorrow morning, Agents Webb and Reeves will be reassigned to field offices in Alaska and Montana. Their case files will be classified and buried, and you'll be alone. Naomi's stomach tightened, but she kept her voice steady. That's why the files have multiple destinations. News outlets don't answer to you. News outlets answer to advertisers, shareholders, and corporate boards, all of which I have connections to. A story can be delayed, fact-checked into oblivion, or simply buried under more immediate news. Bradley took a sip of his scotch. But even if something did publish, what then? A scandal, investigations, maybe even charges. I'd resign, retreat to my estate, and wait for the news cycle to move on. Meanwhile, you'd spend the rest of your life looking over your shoulder, wondering when one of my former associates decides to eliminate their own liability. So what are you proposing? Bradley set down his glass and approached her slowly, like someone negotiating with a frightened animal. I'm proposing we recognize mutual benefit. You don't want to spend your life in hiding. I don't want my legacy destroyed. Mr. Hensley doesn't want prison. We all want to survive this. The question is how. And your answer is partnership. My answer is controlled transition. The Sterling Oak operation has become too risky. Tonight proved that. It's time to shut it down cleanly, redistribute assets, and ensure everyone involved has sufficient motivation to maintain silence. He paused. Including you. You want to buy me off. I want to make you wealthy enough that you'd be foolish to jeopardize your own fortune. $10 million, Ms. Watson. Tax-free, held in an offshore account under whatever name you choose. Enough to disappear completely, live comfortably anywhere in the world, and never worry about money again. The number hung in the air like a physical presence. $10 million. More money than Naomi, than Nicole, had ever imagined having. And in exchange, you delete those files. You sign a non-disclosure agreement backed by financial penalties so severe that breaking it would bankrupt you. And you leave the country within 48 hours, never to return. Naomi's mind raced. The offer was tempting, seductive even. Financial security, freedom from fear, a genuine fresh start. But something about it felt wrong. If you're so confident you can control the FBI and the media, she said slowly, why offer me anything at all? Why not just kill me and deal with the file release? Bradley's expression darkened. Because I'm tired, Ms. Watson. Tired of threats, of violence, of looking over my shoulder. I've spent 6 years building this network, and it's exhausted me in ways I didn't anticipate. When I started, I told myself I was serving a higher purpose, that the information I provided to foreign entities was a form of realpolitik, a necessary evil in a complicated world. But the truth? He met her eyes. The truth is I was greedy. I wanted more than a senator's salary could provide, and now I'm trapped in a machine of my own creation. That's supposed to make me sympathetic? It's supposed to make you understand that I'm offering you something I wish someone had offered me years ago, a way out that doesn't end in destruction. Naomi studied his face, looking for deception but found only weariness. What happens to Dr. Chen? To Mr. Hensley? They'll receive their own compensation packages. Smaller than yours, naturally. They're more complicit, but enough to ensure cooperation and silence. And the FBI agents? Will recover from their injuries and return to distinguished careers in other divisions. I'll ensure they're commended for their service before the investigation is classified. It was all so neat, so carefully constructed. Everyone walks away. No loose ends, no consequences. Except for Janice Williams, whose body had been dumped in a warehouse. Except for Nicole Watson's stolen life. Except for every person whose safety had been compromised by the information Senator Bradley had sold. I need time to think, Naomi said. You have 1 hour. Bradley checked his watch. After that, the offer expires and we proceed with less agreeable alternatives. Mr. Hensley escorted her to a small office down the hall, comfortable but clearly designed to hold people. A couch, a desk, A window that didn't open. One of the tactical team members stood outside the door. Alone for the first time in hours, Naomi sank onto the couch and let herself feel the full weight of her situation. Her body ached from the restraints. Her mind felt fractured between identities, and she had 60 minutes to make a decision that would determine the rest of her life. $10 million, freedom, safety. All she had to do was let guilty people walk away unpunished. She pulled out her phone. They'd returned it, probably because they'd disabled any tracking or recording capabilities, but it could still access the cloud account. She logged in, looking at the files she'd uploaded 7 months ago, the photos of ledgers, the transaction records, the video of Senator Bradley and Mr. Hensley discussing espionage, evidence that could bring down a corruption network spanning multiple states and agencies, or evidence she could delete for enough money to never worry again. Her finger hovered over the delete button. Then she noticed something she'd missed before, a timestamp on one of the ledger photos, March 15th, 2 years ago. The same date she'd remembered earlier, the same $47,000 birthday dinner that never happened. But there was another entry on that same page, one she hadn't mentioned to Webb and Reeves because it hadn't seemed important at the time. A wire transfer, $50,000. Recipient, J. Williams Trust Fund, Janice Williams, the woman who'd been murdered and dumped in a warehouse. Naomi scrolled through more photos, searching for other references. She found 3 more payments to the J. Williams Trust Fund, each one $50,000 spread across 18 months. Why would the Sterling Oak be making payments to someone they later killed, unless Janice Williams hadn't been an innocent victim, unless she'd been part of the operation, a participant who'd become a liability just like Nicole Watson, and they'd replaced her with someone who looked similar, someone who could serve the same function. Naomi's blood went cold as understanding crystallized. She wasn't their first experimental subject. She was their second. Dr. Chen's procedure, the induced amnesia, the identity replacement, they'd tested it on Janice Williams first. That's why the woman looked so much like her. They'd specifically chosen someone with similar features to make the substitution easier. But something had gone wrong with Janice. Maybe her memories had come back too quickly. Maybe she'd tried to expose them. So they'd killed her and found a new test subject, found Nicole Watson. And now they were offering her $10 million to walk away, knowing she'd spend the rest of her life wondering if she'd end up like Janice. Disposable, replaceable, ultimately expendable. A knock on the door made her jump. Mr. Hensley entered without waiting for permission. 20 minutes left, he said. Have you decided? I have questions first. Janice Williams, the woman you killed, was she part of your operation? Mr. Hensley's expression flickered. That's not relevant to your current situation. It's relevant to whether I trust you to honor any agreement. Was she? A long pause. Then, yes, she worked for us, but she became unstable after Dr. Chen's procedure. Started having paranoid delusions, thought we were trying to kill her. She became dangerous. So you fulfilled her expectations. We protected ourselves. And what happens when I become inconvenient? When the money isn't enough to guarantee my silence? Do I end up in a dumpster too? You're different. You're pragmatic. Janice was emotional, irrational. Janice was human, Naomi interrupted. She was someone whose brain you scrambled with experimental procedures, then acted surprised when she didn't respond well. Mr. Hensley's jaw tightened. Your time is running out. Then let me make this simple. I'm not taking the money. Excuse me? I said no. I'm not deleting the files. I'm not signing anything, and I'm not leaving the country. Your offer is rejected. Mr. Hensley's hand moved to his pocket, probably a phone to call Senator Bradley. But before he could make the call, an alarm began blaring throughout the building. Red emergency lights flooded the hallway, and a voice came over the intercom. Agent Patricia Reeves's voice. Attention all personnel. This facility is now surrounded by federal agents. Weapons on the ground, hands in the air. This is your only warning. Mr. Hensley's face went pale. That's impossible. How did they? My phone, Naomi said, pulling it from her pocket. You disabled tracking and recording, but you didn't check for passive transmitters. The FBI tagged it when they had me at the hotel. They've been following the signal this whole time, waiting to see where you'd take me. It was a bluff, pure improvisation based on crime shows and desperate hope. But Mr. Hensley's expression said he believed it. You set us up, he whispered. I learned from the best. The door burst open. This time it wasn't tactical contractors, but actual FBI agents in full gear, weapons drawn, voices overlapping in commands. Mr. Hensley raised his hands slowly. Senator Bradley appeared in the doorway behind the agents, his face a mask of controlled rage. "This isn't over, Ms. Watson. You have no idea what you've just started." But Naomi saw Agent Webb behind him, wounded but standing, placing handcuffs on the senator's wrists with visible satisfaction. "Senator James Bradley," Webb said, his voice stronger than it had any right to be, "you're under arrest for espionage, obstruction of justice, and conspiracy to commit murder. You have the right to remain silent." As they led the senator away, Agent Reeves approached Naomi, a complicated expression on her face. "You played us," she said quietly. "You had those files the whole time, but you didn't tell us until the last moment. Why?" "Because I needed to know the full scope of what we were dealing with," Naomi replied. "And I needed to make sure you'd actually protect me afterward, not just use me as a witness and throw me back into danger." Reeves studied her for a long moment. Then, surprisingly, she smiled. "Smart. Maybe too smart. We're going to need full debriefings, testimony preparation, probably months of your life tied up in legal proceedings." "I know. And there's still the matter of your identity. Nicole Watson or Naomi Washington? Which one survives this?" Naomi looked down at her hands, the same hands that had cleaned tables, that had taken photos of evidence, that had just turned down $10 million. "I guess," she said softly, "we'll figure that out together." 6 months later, Naomi Washington sat in a federal courthouse in Washington, D.C., watching as Senator James Bradley was led into the courtroom in an orange jumpsuit. The transformation was striking. Gone was the powerful politician in designer suits, replaced by a diminished man who avoided eye contact with everyone. The trial had been a media sensation. Newspapers called it the biggest espionage case in a generation. Cable news ran endless speculation. Congressional hearings were scheduled. And at the center of it all was a black woman who'd been a maid, whose testimony was dismantling a corruption network that had operated for years. Agent Reeves sat beside her in the gallery, no longer just an investigator but something closer to a friend. "You ready for this?" she whispered. Naomi nodded, though her hands were trembling. Today was sentencing day, the end of months of testimony, cross-examination, and relentless media scrutiny. But it was also something else. Today was the day she'd finally made her decision about who she was. The judge entered, a stern woman in her 60s named Justice Martha Brennan, known for her no-nonsense approach to national security cases. The courtroom fell silent. "The defendant will rise," she said. Senator Bradley stood, his lawyer beside him, both wearing expressions of resigned defeat. The trial had been devastating for the defense. The video evidence, the ledgers, the testimony from over 30 witnesses, it had painted an undeniable picture of systematic betrayal. Justice Brennan looked at the papers before her. "Senator Bradley, you have been found guilty on 18 counts of espionage, 7 counts of money laundering, 3 counts of obstruction of justice, and 1 count of conspiracy to commit murder. Before I pronounce sentence, is there anything you wish to say?" Bradley cleared his throat. For a moment, Naomi thought he might apologize, might show some remorse. Instead, he turned and looked directly at her. "That woman," he said, his voice carrying across the courtroom, "doesn't even know who she is. Her mind has been so damaged by experimental procedures that half her memories are fiction. And you're trusting her testimony to destroy a career built over 30 years? Justice Brennan's expression didn't change. "Mr. Bradley, Ms. Watson's cognitive evaluations have been thoroughly documented. 3 independent neurologists have confirmed that while she experienced trauma-induced amnesia, her recovered memories regarding the events in question are consistent, detailed, and corroborated by physical evidence. Your attempt to discredit her credibility is noted and rejected." She looked down at her papers again. "On the charge of espionage, I sentence you to 25 years in federal prison. On the charges of money laundering, an additional 10 years, to run consecutively. On obstruction of justice, 5 years. And on conspiracy, to commit murder." She paused, letting the weight of the moment settle. Life imprisonment, to run consecutively with all other sentences. The courtroom erupted. Reporters rushed for the exits to break the story. Bradley's lawyer was already objecting, talking about appeals, but Naomi just sat there, feeling something she hadn't felt in months: relief. After the courtroom cleared, Agent Webb found her in the hallway. His shoulder was still healing. He'd need physical therapy for another 3 months, but his spirits were high. "Congratulations," he said. "You just brought down one of the most corrupt politicians in American history." We did, Naomi corrected. I couldn't have done this without you and Reeves. True, but you're the one who had the courage to come forward, to testify despite everything they put you through. He paused. So what happens now? Where does Naomi Washington go from here? That was the question that had haunted her for months, the question she'd finally answered. Actually, she said, that's something I need to tell you both. Can we talk somewhere private? They found an empty conference room. Reeves closed the door, her expression curious. Naomi took a deep breath. I've been working with a therapist, Dr. Elizabeth Chen, no relation to Miranda Chen, thankfully. She specializes in trauma and identity issues, and we've been exploring something important. Your memories? Reeves asked. More than that, my identity itself. Naomi pulled out a folder she'd been carrying. I've had extensive neurological testing done, independent evaluations, brain scans, psychological assessments, and here's what we discovered. The amnesia that Dr. Miranda Chen induced, the false identity they tried to give me as Naomi Washington, it didn't work the way they intended. She opened the folder, showing them medical reports. My brain didn't just lose memories and accept new ones. It created a hybrid. Parts of Nicole Watson's personality, memories, and identity merged with the constructed Naomi Washington persona. What resulted isn't purely either person, it's someone new. Webb frowned. I'm not sure I understand. Neither did I at first, but Dr. Elizabeth Chen explained it like this. Imagine taking two different photographs and overlaying them. You don't get one clear image or the other. You get something that contains elements of both, creating a third, unique image. Naomi's voice grew stronger. That's what happened to my mind. The trauma, the induced amnesia, the attempt to create a false identity. It all resulted in a genuine psychological transformation. So who are you? Reeves asked gently. That's what I've been trying to figure out. Nicole Watson has family. A sister in Atlanta I haven't seen in 15 years. An ex-husband who deserves to know what happened. Naomi Washington has an apartment, a life, however constructed it might have been. She looked at both agents, but neither of those identities feels complete anymore. Neither one is entirely me. She pulled out another document. So I'm doing something unusual. I'm legally changing my name. Not back to Nicole Watson, not keeping Naomi Washington, but something that honors both parts of who I've become. She showed them the paperwork, the name at the top, Nicole Naomi Watson Washington. I'm keeping both, she said simply, because both are true. Nicole Watson was a woman who saw injustice and tried to expose it. Naomi Washington was a woman who survived trauma and found the strength to fight back. I'm not going to choose between them. I'm going to be both. Webb smiled. That's actually beautiful. It's complicated, Naomi corrected, but so is everything about this situation. I figure I might as well embrace the complexity instead of trying to simplify it. Reeves leaned back in her chair, studying Naomi with new appreciation. You know, when we first pulled you into this investigation, I saw you as a victim, someone who needed protection, but you're not a victim, are you? You never were. I was, Naomi said honestly. They victimized me. They stole my memories, my identity, my sense of self, but I decided that wasn't going to be the end of my story. Being a victim is something that happened to me. It's not who I am. So who are you? Naomi thought about the question, really thought about it. Who was she after everything? I'm a woman who was underestimated, she said finally. They thought because I was black, because I was a maid, because I kept my head down and followed orders, that I was invisible, powerless, easy to manipulate or eliminate. But they were wrong. I saw what they didn't think I'd see. I remembered what they tried to make me forget, and I fought back in ways they never anticipated. She stood, gathering her papers. I'm also someone who's tired of being defined by what was done to me, so I'm moving forward. I've accepted a job offer, consultant for the FBI's Financial Crimes Division. Turns out my experience recognizing money laundering operations is valuable. Agent Reeves was kind enough to recommend me. Reeves smiled. You earned it. You have an eye for detail and pattern recognition that most trained investigators lack. Plus, Webb added, having you on the team sends a powerful message that the people who seem invisible in society, the service workers, the cleaners, the ones in the background, they see more than anyone realizes, and their testimony matters. Naomi felt tears pricking her eyes. Thank you, both of you, for believing me when I barely believed myself. They walked her to the courthouse exit, where a media circus waited. Cameras, reporters shouted questions. Naomi had done only one official interview, with a journalist who'd written a long-form piece about her story titled, "The Maid Who Remembered." But today she'd agreed to make a brief statement. She stepped up to the microphone cluster, feeling the weight of dozens of cameras focusing on her. "My name is Nicole Naomi Watson Washington," she began, her voice clear and steady. "6 months ago, I was a woman who cleaned tables at an exclusive restaurant. I was someone people looked through, not at. But I was also someone who was paying attention." She paused, gathering her thoughts. "Today, Senator Bradley was sentenced for crimes that he committed over years, thinking no one would notice. He was wrong, because the people you overlook, the service workers, the janitors, the maids, were not invisible. We see everything, and sometimes we remember." "What do you want people to take away from your story?" a reporter called out. Naomi considered the question. "I want people to understand that dignity isn't something that comes from job titles or bank accounts. It comes from how you treat others and how you respond when you're tested. I also want people to know that identity, who you are, isn't just about memory or history. It's about the choices you make, especially the hard ones. Do you regret turning down Senator Bradley's $10 million offer?" She smiled. "Not for a second, because I learned something important through all of this. You can't buy peace of mind. You can't purchase self-respect. The only way to live with yourself is to make choices you can defend even when they're difficult." "What's next for you?" "Work, healing, building a life that's authentically mine, not constructed by someone else, not defined by trauma but chosen deliberately." She looked directly into the cameras, and maybe, hopefully, showing other people who've been told they're invisible that they have more power than they realize. As she stepped away from the microphones, Agent Reeves put a hand on her shoulder. "That was perfect. It was honest," Naomi replied. "That's all I can be now." 3 months later, Naomi stood in front of the Sterling Oak. The restaurant was closed, a for sale sign in the window. The prosecution had seized all of Mr. Hensley's assets. He was serving 20 years for his role in the conspiracy. Dr. Miranda Chen had fled to a country without extradition treaties, but Interpol had her on a watch list. The building looked smaller now, less intimidating. Just bricks and mortar, no longer a symbol of her powerlessness. Sarah, the young server who'd worked with her, approached from down the street. They'd stayed in touch, and Sarah had agreed to meet her here today. "Why did you want to come back?" Sarah asked. "Closure," Naomi said simply. "I needed to stand here as who I am now and acknowledge who I was then." Both versions. They stood in silence for a moment, watching people walk past the empty restaurant. "I never thanked you," Sarah said quietly. "That night, when you were taken, I was terrified. I knew something was wrong, but I was too scared to do anything. You could have exposed me as a coward in your testimony. You were protecting yourself, there's no shame in that. And you did help, eventually. Your testimony about the restaurant's operations was crucial. Still, you were brave when I wasn't." Naomi shook her head. "I wasn't brave, I was trapped. Bravery is having a choice and choosing the hard path. I just did what I had to do to survive. That's the definition of bravery." Maybe it was. Naomi was still learning to accept that interpretation. Her phone buzzed. A text from Agent Webb. The last of Senator Bradley's co-conspirators had just accepted a plea deal. The investigation was essentially complete. "You know what's strange?" Naomi said to Sarah. "Senator Bradley told me once that I didn't know who I was. He meant it as an insult, a way to discredit me. But he was right, just not in the way he thought. I didn't know who I was. I had to discover it. And maybe that's true for everyone. We don't really know ourselves until we're tested. And you passed the test. I survived it. That's all anyone can do." They walked away from the Sterling Oak together, leaving it behind like a shed skin. Naomi had an apartment now. A real one she'd chosen herself in a neighborhood she liked. She had work that challenged her, colleagues who respected her, and a future that was genuinely hers to shape. She also had questions that might never be fully answered. Would she ever fully integrate her fragmented memories? Would Nicole Watson's past continue to surface in unexpected moments? Would she always feel like she was two people trying to be one? Probably. But she'd learned something important through this nightmare. Identity isn't a fixed thing you either have or don't have. It's something you build, every day, through actions and choices. That night, sitting in her apartment with a cup of tea, Naomi opened her laptop and accessed the cloud storage account that had saved her life. The files were still there, evidence that had brought down Senator Bradley and exposed a corruption network. She'd kept them despite everything being officially documented now. A backup, a reminder, a weapon she hoped she'd never need again, but also something else. Proof that she'd been seen, that her testimony mattered, that the invisible woman had changed history. She closed the laptop and looked at her reflection in the darkened window. "Hello, Nicole Naomi Watson, Washington," she said softly to the woman looking back. "Let's see what kind of life we build together." And for the first time in 7 months, she felt like she was looking at someone whole. 1 year later, Naomi walked into a small diner in Charleston. The waitress, a young black woman, maybe 20, served her coffee with tired eyes that looked right through her. "Excuse me," Naomi said gently. "I see you." The waitress paused, confused. "I see you," Naomi repeated. "And whatever you're working toward, whatever dreams you're protecting while you do this job, they matter. You matter." The waitress's eyes filled with tears. "Thank you," she whispered. Naomi left a $100 tip and a business card. On the back she'd written, "You're not invisible.